Thank you for your presentation, Klaus. Next up, we have Martin Jönsson, CEO of AlzeCure, to present the company. Welcome.
Thank you, Kevin, and good day to everybody. My name is Martin Jönsson, and I'm the CEO of Alzecure Pharma. I'm here to today present mainly our pain project, but first a quick overview of the company. Alzecure Pharma is a company focusing on Alzheimer's disease and pain. We became a commercial company in 2016, but you can see us as a spin-off from AstraZeneca. We are a very experienced team with broad competence from early target identification, chemistry, preclinical work and development, as well as commercialization. We are based at Karolinska Institute and work very closely with Karolinska Institute. We have three platforms, two platforms within Alzheimer's disease. One where we are developing a concept to prevent the development of Alzheimer, one to treat patients who have developed Alzheimer to improve learning capability and memory. And then our third platform, Painless, which we will talk about today, we are treating different pain conditions. We are listed at Nasdaq First North Premier Growth Market since 2018. We have a market cap about $250 million and a cash position of around 50. Our pipeline, we have 6 different projects which are organized into our 3 platforms. In Neurology, where we treat Alzheimer's and cognitive disorders, we have just finished a phase 1 successfully based on safety, tolerability, and also target engagement. And then going into our pain platform, which we will focus on today, we this summer started a phase 2 trial on ACD440, where we are targeting neuropathic pain, and we will go into that project more in detail. Then we also have TrkA NAM, which is our second project, where we also have been very active, and we will describe these news that we have had this summer and fall later on in this presentation. If we look at the area of pain, we are focusing on chronic pain. Chronic pain is actually causing more suicide than depression. We also know that chronic pain is the most common reason why people actually go to hospitals, and it costs society immensely and creates so much misery for patients. And today we have an opioid crisis in the US, which is also actually is reversing the mean age of the US population. So we can surely say that here is a huge unmet medical need in pain. So if there are today more than 5,000 registered products. Our platforms where we are targeting pain consist of 2. Our first platform is TrkA NAM, where we are focusing on osteoarthritis and other severe pain conditions. In osteoarthritis, there are today more than 300 million patients, and it's a growing patient population based on aging population and overweight problems. And here we are having TrkA NAM. Our second platform is aiming at neuropathic pain, and here we have more than 600 million patients. 80% of these patients today are not experiencing adequate pain relief. So the need here is huge. And here we have a project which is built on what last year was rewarded the Nobel Prize in medicine, and our company here is ACD440. And the Nobel Prize was awarded to Professor David Julius. And he built knowledge around the receptor TRPV1, which is so central when it comes to touch, temperature, but also pain sensation. And our project here is that we have a TRPV1 antagonist, and we are one of the few who are having this. This is a project that we have licensed in from AstraZeneca, and they have spent more than 200 million. And this means that we have a lot of documentation, we have a lot of projects around this that's already done that we don't need to invest in. And mode of action here is truly confirmed. And this project also builds, as you understand, on very strong scientific support. And initially, this was a project developed into oral formulation, but we have really reformulated it into a gel because these patients have, in most cases, upregulated receptors that can be reached through the skin, and we don't want to cause systemic side effects, which has been a problem before. So here we have a topical formulation, and we ended a trial, a phase 1b, last year, very successfully, both on safety, tolerability, and also with very good results on pain. And then we also had a dialogue with the FDA and got their input to start a phase 2 trial, which we started this summer. And we are now aiming to have results on this study in mid-2023. So this is a very exciting one. Then when it comes to neuropathic pain, it's actually the biggest individual pain market, turnover more than $11 billion, but still 80% of these patients are not experiencing adequate pain relief. And therefore the growth here is expected to be immense. And our second project that we are really very happy about is a project that we have developed on our own. This is a non-opioid treatment against severe pain conditions, where we are initially focusing on osteoarthritis. This is built on strong validation. You surely know that there has been NGF antibodies, which truly have shown great pain relief, but these compounds has also shown side effects. And here we have what we think can be an answer to this. This compound also have a huge blockbuster opportunity, since there are more than 300 million patients in osteoarthritis, more than 600 million patients in lower back pain, so huge areas. And here we have developed a molecule, a TrkA NAM, which is down-regulating the NGF signaling, which is so central to pain sensation. With this, we expect, and we have preclinical evidence already from several models, that we should have a clinical efficacy, but also a much improved safety profile. We will develop an oral medication, and also to have something which, compared to opioids, will not cause addictions. Then we also have this autumn also presented that this compound also have anti-inflammatory effects. And this is really great both for treating pain, but also this is opening up great other opportunities for this compound. Key milestone for us in 2022 has been to strengthen our finances, which we did in Q1 successfully. And also to start the phase 2 study on painless ACD414 neuropathic pain, which is ongoing successfully. And also to have a positive readout on our Alzheimer's project, NeuroRestore, which we have had a couple of months ago. What we are working on now is really to advance our clinical candidates in the TrkA NAM project, and also to advance our Alzheimer's project, Alzstatin, to prevent patients developing Alzheimer's. And why we say that AlzeCure is an interesting company to invest in is because we are targeting areas of huge medical need, also have a strong team. We have shown that we can develop, we find targets, we develop molecules, we run them through preclinical into development, which we have shown that we have the capability to. And also that we have first-in-class properties which really can be game changers, and several of these. And also that we do parallel investments with potent follow-up programs. What we are going for are areas with multi-billion market opportunities. And we have now evolved ourselves into a phase 2 company. So this is a great achievement. And thank you for listening, and have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you for a great presentation, Thomas and Karin. Now it's time for the first panel of the day, themed around the pain. With me on stage, I have Martin Jönsson, CEO of AlzeCure, and with me online, I have Klaus Olsen, CEO of Initiative Pharma, Thomas Fälthus, CEO of Saniona, and Per von Menser, CEO of PharmNovo. Now, pain is often divided into two major segments, nociceptive pain and neuropathic pain, where in today we will focus on neuropathic pain mostly, where we have seen a huge unmet medical need. So now my question to begin with is, why are current treatments, the conventional opioids and the anti-epileptic drugs, inadequate for this huge indication today? Martin, would you like to start?
Yeah, I mean, they are not pinpointing neuropathic pain, and they are symptomatic or they are systemic, and they are affecting the whole system. And I mean, an opioid is it's a capitulation of pain management. It's good in certain cases, but it's absolutely not what the patients should have.
And what do you believe that the patients lack from this medicine? What do they need?
I mean, first of all, when you see on the opioids, we all know that it creates addiction and breaks down the patient, and they can't function in a how should I say, in a well-functioning way. They need a pain treatment which is efficacious and specific, which doesn't affect other systems in the body, so they get negative side effects. And so they modalities efficacious and safe treatments. And I also think it's fair to say that these patients, we need several different kinds of modalities in these pain treatments. So there is not one bullet. We need several.
Yes. And Klaus, I know that in trigeminal neuralgia, the main current treatment is carbamazepine. Would you like to talk a little bit more about its the bad or negative sides around this treatment and why we need a new treatment in trigeminal neuralgia?
Yeah, so maybe I'll take one step back and maybe look at it in general and follow up with what just was said. We often treat pain as one drug can treat everything, and there's very different phenotypes of what is actually causing the pain. We can see that some drugs work really good in one neuropathic pain indication and then the other one, and that's then we need to go in and look at what's the physiological explanation for this. What do we see? What mono means, and what other compounds are actually being changed here. We know that for example, in TN, we actually see in a lot of the trials that was never really completed because of side effects, we actually see that dopamine plays an important role, and that's why we have selected that. That's not saying that's the only way to target this indication, but that's definitely a way. We also see that in some of these neuropathic pains and also some chronic pains, we actually see there's a modulation of the dopaminergic system. You can draw the parallel to what we sometimes see in Parkinson's patients. There's a lack of dopaminergic signaling. And that's also what we see in definitely some specific types of neuropathic pain. That is something that would be really beneficial targeting that. You can say that a old drug like carbamazepine, actually in the drug trial they did back in the day with the FDA, it never really showed, it was never done in proper placebo-controlled studies. So it's just been kind of grandfathered approval based on that it provided some relief. But instability, people are losing their balance when they're taking this. There's a lot of side effects. So it's not a really good drug. And it's just as was mentioned before, the efficacy, I think Karen related to that, the efficacy wears off over time. So you say it's not a drug that is good for sustainable being on. And when you are a neuropathic pain patient, you are going to have severe pain for a longer time. So I think, and again, demonstrating that there definitely is a need for drugs that fits the various pain indication. And now you can say there's a lot of companies today representing very different techniques. And I think that's quite unique, especially for the patients in need, right? That we are trying to address the individual diseases with different modalities going forward. So I see that we'll see a lot more development in the pain section in the coming years.
Definitely. And building on that, Per, I know PharmNovo is obviously developing a delta opioid receptor agonist, not to be confused with the conventional opioids. But how do you view the possibility of combination treatment? Is the aim to combine the new generation treatments with the old conventional drugs or to replace the current treatments?
That's an interesting question. And I think I want to relate back to the early comments here, talking about opioids not being adequate. I think, as I mentioned in my presentation, not all opioids are the same. And I think we are maybe just halfway in understanding what different kind of opioids could actually perform. And the field of delta agonists has been researched for decades, and our lead compound is based on an early spin-out from AstraZeneca that was developed further. And I think what we do see is that we, in our preclinical studies, had very low effect on acute pain, but a very high and potent effect on chronic pain. And it's interesting to see that with the development that has been achieved by our founder, Bengt von Menzer, and the team early on, we managed to develop something that we think is unique today, a compound that is highly selective. So it's basically only touching the delta receptor. And on top of that, having this bias signaling. So that combination, we believe, is actually the trick. And we don't really foresee any combination treatments as such of today, because we are focusing mainly on neuropathic pain and the symptom of allodynia. What the future might bring, we don't know, but we have a compound that is extremely effective in doing that job. And in the animal models, we've been forced to go up to maximum doses in most of the tox studies because of the low toxicity. So I think we have something which is very, very interesting. And it remains to be seen, of course, now what happens in phase 1, but we have confidence that it will be safe and tolerable. It looks very good in the first half. And then, of course, moving on to see the translation into humans in terms of efficacy. But it's good to remember that not all opioids are the same. And I think we are on a track to find something that's very interesting.
Yeah, thank you. And building on the development of new treatments, neuropathic pain can differ a lot between patients and isn't as easily quantifiable as many other indications. I would like to ask you, Thomas, or maybe Karin, what do you see to be the major challenges in creating or designing a clinical framework and determining the endpoints?
Thanks. That is a very, very good question. And you're absolutely right that also, as Klaus alluded to, that patients diagnosed with within the same neuropathic pain disorder actually can have a very differentiated symptomatology, which is most likely based on a different pathological underlying process, which means that they most likely respond with a differential response to the same treatment. So if we could somehow identify the patients that has the same pain phenotype, then we align that with our mode of action, then we most likely have a much better success in designing our phase 2 studies and reaching our endpoints. However, from a regulatory point of view, that is quite challenging because approvals are not based, or they are based on established indications and not on symptoms or phenotypes. So that places a huge challenge from a regulatory point of view. I think we can do it from a clinical point of view, but the problem will be to get the studies approved, actually.
Thank you. And there are, of course, different approaches to defining the study and the patient population and what kind of treatment you want to aim for. Klaus, I would like to ask you with, of course, IPTN 2021 being specifically targeting trigeminal neuralgia. What are the pros and cons of using a more narrow subgroup versus targeting a broader scope of neuropathic pain?
You can say when we evaluated where we wanted to go into pain, we looked at, as also been shown today, preclinical data showing in animal models, what is actually meaningful here. And then you can say the next step is how can we translate that into to a pain setting where we believe there will be a good way of demonstrating efficacy and pain relief to the patient. And as now we discussed before, even though it's the same indication, you call it neuropathic pain, if you go too broad, you might end up in a study that is costing too much. You need to include too many patients to get any data out of it. And that's not the model that we have. The model that we have is actually going in, finding what we scientifically believe that there's a strong translation ability between the animal models and the disease, and then recruit the patients in there that we actually believe have the right type. And you can say that here we're talking about indication TN patients, but of course there's both episodic and chronic patients here as well. And there's different reasons to go into the different patient groups. So I think that of course you are narrowing yourself down. We also think that we have utility in many other indications, and that's something we're still exploring to see is there anywhere else that the rationale is better based on the data now we got from the healthy volunteer study. But we're really nice to see both the hyperalgesia and allodynia effects. But we think that when going into TN, we actually have a segment of patients, again, an unmet need. There is a proof in some uncompleted studies that dopamine regulation is important to provide pain relief. And these are things that we are kind of saying, okay, that's why it's a good indication for us to go into. And also there's more and more data now coming in that some of these neuropathic pains that are more chronic, you could say, actually we see a remodulation of the dopaminergic system. So that's also supporting us to go into this indication specifically.
Now switching focus a little bit, back to what we talked about in the introduction, with the Nobel Prize being given to David Julius for his findings in the pain field with the receptors of temperature and touch. Martin, I would like to ask you, how can these type of findings help us in the development of new treatments for the pain indication?
What he has developed is so much knowledge around the receptor and how we can attack this receptor, but also he's building scientific support for how to go into this disease, and also with regard to how he has worked and also identified this receptor in so many different systems. And I also think that when it comes to neuropathic pain, the knowledge he has created around the TRPV1 receptors is so central to go in and really treat this receptor, and then to be able to develop molecules which is targeting this receptor in an effective way. This is of course crucial, and it's so interesting to hear the interviews with him when he got the Nobel Prize. He did not at all talk about touch and temperature. He went directly in to talk about that this receptor is so central for pain, and he really hoped that this would lead to more, how should I say, effective treatments. We know that there has been many other compounds in there, TRPV1 antagonist, and currently it's actually, to my knowledge, we and Novartis, which are in clinical trials, which have specific TRPV1 antagonists. So this is really opening up great opportunity for us. But of course, as we talked about, all of us, is we need several different mechanisms to target neuropathic pain, but TRPV1 receptor is absolutely one of the crucial ones.
Very interesting. And looking at the mechanism of actions when developing a new treatment, Per, would you like to answer what are the benefits and disadvantages of building on a similar kind of approach to a current available treatment versus targeting a completely new target molecule?
Oh, that's a very interesting question. I think we have touched some thoughts of interest, and that is we have definitely been going down the route of looking at symptoms, because we believe that there are so many different patients with so many different situations. And I think in the search for patients that have similar pain phenotypes that was mentioned before, I think there we have some of the new opportunities actually. And that indirectly says that we are definitely looking at completely new and innovative ways of finding compounds that can be directed to the needs of certain phenotype groups. And that has been also the thing guiding us in selecting our lead candidate and also selecting the targets. There's probably multiple opportunities also in building on already known mechanisms and drugs that have been in the market for a long time. But that's, I would say, it's beyond my own experience, and it's also outside of the focus we are having today. We are looking at really developing new innovative compounds that are not in the market or have not really been tried in the market.
Thank you. Very interesting answers. Karin, would you like to add on that?
Yeah, if you would just allow me a brief comment. So I think that clearly it is a huge risk to develop novel targets. I think one of the best examples of this is from the sodium channel blocker field, where there is an excellent story. There's very strong human genetic data that points to that loss of function is associated with insensitivity for pain, and gain of function is associated with some of the strong pain indications. But still, this target has not delivered yet. It has not proven itself yet. So we have taken the philosophy to try to de-risk this very, very expensive development phase of clinical development by capitalizing on the fact that we actually know with the benzodiazepines that they do work from an efficacy point of view. And reason I say that is that we know from clinical studies that if you inject a benzodiazepine directly into the spinal cord, then you attain sufficient high concentrations to reach a receptor occupancy that sustains an analgesic effect. We know that from several publications, older publications actually. And by direct injections into the spinal cord, you don't get the sedative effects because you don't get sufficient brain exposure. From the preclinical studies, we know that the pain-relieving effects are mediated by alpha-3 activation. So we benefit from this knowledge by producing a molecule where we actually have de-risked the efficacy quite a lot. And we have carved out all the subunits that mediate the adverse effects. So I think our philosophy has been to take a molecule and take a mechanism that we actually know is effective and then tweak it a bit in order to get better tolerability, and then we de-risk development immensely. At least we hope to do that.
Really agree, Karen.
Thank you. And I think it's obvious that we have some very interesting times ahead in the pain treatment field. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today for this panel discussion. But I want to thank you all for joining me today. And we will take a short break now, and then we have the Parkinson's field.